Today's episode has been brought to you by Schedulicity.
And also by Pelvic Health Professionals, which if you're listening in real time, opens today. And all the way up until June the 12th, 2020, you can join. If you're wondering, what is this? This is where pelvic health professionals, yoga teachers, movement educators, PTs, midwives, doulas, doctors, massage therapists, all kinds of health professionals. This is where we can all gather together, connect, and learn. Hello and welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. If you're new here, I'm your host, Shannon Crow. I'm a mom of three, a yoga teacher, and a trainer and consultant who works for yoga teachers. If you're a returning listener, then you know that this podcast was created with you in mind so that you can connect to the information and inspiration every single week and feel supported as you navigate these sometimes very tricky jungles of being a yoga teacher and also a business owner. I'm so excited about today's episode because I'm sharing with you something really special. It's a section of an interview I did with Antony Lo, who was a guest expert for our Pelvic Health Professionals membership site. The full talk with Antony is available if you join the membership site, but I thought that this piece of content was so valuable that I wanted to share it with you. And I also wanted to give you a bit of a peek into what it's like when we have a guest expert in the membership. Antony and I dig into pelvic health and movement and exercise in this episode. We discuss the importance of exercise to clients beyond pelvic health issues and the social emotional impacts that restricting access to their usual exercise regime might have. As well as we talk about CrossFit and similar movement modalities that might be contraindicated in clients with pelvic floor dysfunction. I love that you're going to hear the way Antony works with people, and he shares how he helps people that he's working one-on-one with as a physio. You'll also get to hear how he's really about empowering people to move and empowering people to move not just in a session with us, but outside of that. We talk about why it's really important to have a list of people to refer to outside of our profession. I think this is such a good practice to have as a yoga teacher. Also, if you want to hear the full interview, Antony went into what it looks like right now as a PT during the COVID-19 crisis. We also talked about breath work and tele-rehab. And we also talked about how our language and input as professionals might influence our clients' perception of what's going on in their body. As I said, if you want to hear the full interview with all of this, you can sign up now. Go to pelvichealthprofessionals.com. If you're listening after the doors close, you can still sign up to be on the wait list. And as always, our show notes are ready for you over at theconnectedyogateacher.com. For today's episode, go to theconnectedyogateacher.com/171. There you can find the direct link to sign up for Pelvic Health Professionals. You'll also be able to find more links to follow Antony Lo. I want to give two shout outs of thank you. One to Basu, who left a review. Basu said, "Yes, I stumbled upon the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast almost a year ago, and I tune in every Monday on my drive to the office. This podcast has truly transformed my practice, the way I approach business, my relationship with clients, and my life. I am forever grateful to Shannon Crow." Thank you so much, Basu, for taking the time to leave a review. That was back in January. I'm super curious to hear how you're doing now since everything in the world changed before you left this review. And I also want to ask our Connected Yoga Teacher listeners who haven't left a review, could you pause the podcast right now and do that? That means so much to us. That's a great way to say thank you. If the content is helping you, we'd love to hear from you. And I try and read them on the podcast. And another shout out of thank you to our sponsor, Schedulicity, who makes this possible. Schedulicity really fuels our team and supports our yoga teachers with their online scheduling software.
Hey there, Connected Yoga Teachers. This is Emily with the Schedulicity Hot Tip of the Week. When you create and market yoga teacher training through Schedulicity, we can help you capture your students' impulse to book. Once you've created your workshop, it's a great idea to enable the payment add-on and choose to collect a deposit, full prepayment, or a credit card number at the time of online booking. This way, that money will go into your bank account when a client books, or if they don't show up, you can charge them based on the no-show policy you've created. Knowing that payment is taken care of allows you to put all of your mental energy into helping your students become the next generation of excellent teachers.
Thank you so much, Team Schedulicity. Let's dive in and meet Antony. Antony Lo is a physiotherapist from Australia who runs the Physio Detective. He's been in practice for over 21 years. Antony earned his degree from the University of Sydney, completed his postgraduate master's in manual therapy, and commenced his specialization training in musculoskeletal physiotherapy. Antony holds a CrossFit Level 1 trainer certificate and a CrossFit football coach consultant. He has been involved with treating CrossFit athletes for 7 years and has helped some of the world's best CrossFitters at the highest levels through to beginners of all ages. Through his participation in CrossFit and his work as a physiotherapist, he's developed a model of treatment that provides a realistic, holistic model of care. I first got to know Antony through the Pelvic Health podcast. If you're not already listening to this podcast and you're super interested in all things pelvic health, I highly recommend checking it out. Okay, connected yoga teachers, let's dive in so that you can meet Antony, hear all of the amazing wisdom he has to share, and also see what an interview inside Pelvic Health Professionals is like. Welcome, everyone, to the March 30th episode with Antony Lo. I am super excited to have you here today. Antony, tell us about the work that you do and who you do it for, in case some here don't know who you are.
Well, I'm an Australian musculoskeletal physiotherapist. I'm the equivalent of an FCAMT in Canada, and I work at the junction of musculoskeletal, sports, and women's health physiotherapy. I teach around the world. I teach in-person courses as well as online courses when there's not a COVID crisis on, as well as I run a podcast with Marika Hart called the Women's Health Podcast. I'm a dad of 3, all teenagers, 17, 16, and 13 and a half, nearly 14. With my wife, and my favorite animal is an orca because they're amazing in the water and useless on land, just like me.
Thank you so much. That's one of our best intros yet. So I wanted to ask you to talk about CrossFit, and basically I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on people who have pelvic health concerns, let's say pelvic organ prolapse or postnatal people, or maybe pelvic girdle pain or incontinence, and what we should consider when they want to exercise and do the movement that they love.
Okay. Sorry. What's the question behind that?
Yeah, I know. Exactly. That's why I'm excited to have you here today, because I know that you love to encourage people to keep doing the movements that they love. But we do hear a lot of other people saying, oh, you can't do this. Like postnatally, you can't do this, or you can't do crunches if you have a pelvic organ prolapse, or you can't do this movement or whatever.
Okay. I'll just talk generally about stuff I like to talk about there. Bottom line is that people come to us for help, for whatever our specialty is. So I'm a physiotherapist, but you might be a fitness professional, you might be a midwife, a doula. It doesn't really matter. They come to us for help, and we are not their parents, and we're not in charge of people's bodies either. And yet we live in a society where it almost seems like that's what you should be. You know, I gave you exercises last week. How are they going? I've been busy. I haven't gotten to them. Oh, tut, tut, tut. You'll never get better unless you do them. And, you shouldn't do that. It really is bad for you if you do that. Like, we have this patronizing way of dealing with people where we assume that authority role, and yet we're there as a consultant to help them get the best information possible so that they can move forwards and make an informed decision, because it's their body, it's their choice, and they want to be able to achieve their goals, and they're looking for our help. Now, they also tend to assume a passive role, yet they should be in charge of their health. And so when it comes to, if that's the overlying principle over how we interact with people, then when it comes to CrossFit, why are we telling people that they shouldn't do something to random strangers on the internet? Oh, that's a really bad exercise, or, oh, you shouldn't be doing that when you're pregnant, or, whoa, did you know about this? That's really bad for you. Instead of asking more questions like, hey, I noticed that you're doing CrossFit and you've mentioned a couple of times that you're leaking now. Why do you like doing CrossFit? They come in to see you and they're complaining about muscle aches, pains, leaking, symptoms, all the rest of it. What's going on with that? Why are you, I'm really interested that you have all these symptoms and yet you keep going. Tell me about what it is that you're doing so that I can understand why you're doing it and continuing to do it even though you have symptoms. Right? And quite a lot of the time people do CrossFit because CrossFit is exercise which they love doing, but CrossFit exercise is not unique. What they really love is a community. And so people who do CrossFit love hanging out with each other. We talk about CrossFit all the time, but we also talk about other stuff, right? And it's that birds of a feather flock together. When you find a group of people that you get on with and you have a common interest, a common goal, and you share common suffering, we call that the workout, you generate this bond. And then we as health professionals say things like, oh, well, you've had an injury, don't go to CrossFit anymore, right? Oh, you've just given birth, you can't go back to the gym until at least 6 weeks. And what you're really saying to people is, I want to rip you apart from your family, your support, your mental health, time for yourself, because I know that hour is the only hour of the day where you have to yourself, where your partner can take care of the kids and you can run off and actually get some exercise in and catch up with some friends. Why are we taking away their social support? Why are we taking away their mental health break? Why are we taking away something that is physically being shown to be beneficial? And when we think of pelvic health, why are we only thinking about the pelvis, right?
Right.
Because a woman is so much more than a pelvis.
So then what about when our yoga students or the people who are coming to us as PTs or doulas or midwives, what about when they do have those symptoms? Let's say someone says, I am doing CrossFit, I love it, I want to continue to do it, but I'm leaking urine.
Yeah, help them solve the problem.
Right. First, recommend that they go see a pelvic health PT, one that specializes in it. That'd be like first on the list if that's not our hat that we wear.
If that's not something that you feel comfortable doing, then sure. And I always do recommend, a pelvic PT who can do an internal assessment. But I also recommend that they not base their experience that they have with that person as being the way that everybody works. You have to work to find the right team member. And we all know this. If we do any work with people, we know that just some people are just not a good fit for us. And a pelvic PT might not be a good fit for you. Now, I also understand that the pelvic PT that you have in your area to refer to might be the only one for 300 kilometers. I get that. But we're in the wonderful world of the internet these days. And I've been able to help people through online consults, joint consults, to be able to take care of these problems. So yes, usually I'm talking to a bunch of pelvic PTs, and I understand that there's lots of different people in the room right now. So absolutely, that is the first underlying assumption, is that you're able to help people with symptoms. And secondly, that you have access to somebody who understands, for example, what CrossFit is about. If you've got somebody who is used to seeing, I don't know, people with the worst of the worst, and they've seen most of their caseload is not an athletic population, but an older population who's not used to doing high impact exercise, you may have to get other help as well. So I don't do internal PT. So I don't do internal assessments. I rely on other people to give me that information, but I will get people coming to see me and tell me that they're not going back to the pelvic PT because they told them to stop. They made them feel awful for wanting to do what they love doing, and they find out about me and that I won't stop them doing anything, and I won't, because I'm not their parent.
Right.
But I ask them questions, and for some people it's like, look, this is my opinion. I don't think this is going to be helpful with the way that you want to do it. I don't think that you can do it safely to remain healthy and achieve a sustainable long-term outcome with the way that you're doing it. And so this is what I recommend. I recommend that you decrease what you're doing or change it in this way. But for example, if I've got somebody who comes to me at 2 weeks postpartum and says, I want to get back to the gym, like my default answer will be, yes, you can go back to the gym, but it's going to look different to what you might expect straight away. And here are some of the things that I recommend you do. And here are some of the things that I get you to consider.
So could you go through that list of like postnatal considerations and the way it might look for someone, knowing that everyone is an individual and it would be different for different people?
Absolutely. So we talk about lifting, we talk about healing, we talk about the fact that, why is it that you're so keen to get back there? And if I'm hearing something that's not particularly helpful or healthy, like, oh, I want to lose this baby fat as soon as I can. It's like, okay, I completely understand where you are with that. Let's talk about that. And, the underlying problem isn't that they, like, for example, in that case, the underlying problem is more a self-esteem issue, more of they're concerned about how they look issue, or how somebody else thinks that they should look. Then an appropriate referral might be to a counselor or to a psychologist. So it's that screening, but it doesn't mean that they can't go there. It means that, okay, we've got options. Have you considered the bike? Have you considered doing, going there and doing some of the warm-up, catching up with your friends, doing some gentle stretches and gentle movements, and then when they're doing the strength lifting portion, you do the movement, but you don't do it with weight, or you have extremely light weight, something that I've assessed you for. Right? And then you're still taking part, and you're still part of your community, and they understand that you're being sensible about what's going on, and they're going to cheer you on because you've come back and you're taking care of yourself. And to be honest, coaches, particularly owners of gyms, do not want to injure you, because an injured athlete, an injured member, is somebody who doesn't turn up to the gym and doesn't pay the fees. And that's just assuming that it's financial, right? These people actually, you don't get into owning a gym to make money. Like I'm telling you, it's just not the financially viable way to do that. And a lot of these people have left corporate jobs to do it. So they're doing it because they love it, and they love the interaction and the help and the results that they get people. Results. I'm a PT, I'm a physio, and I've seen people get results where I couldn't get results.
Right.
You know, these people are helping people every day, and they see people for hours a week compared to me. If I saw somebody once a week, which is really rare, I would see them half an hour once a week. And already, you know, somebody's turning up to the gym 6 days a week. Some people turn up twice a day. They've
Right.
got so many more hours under the belt. They know this person. And if I make that person choose between their coach and me, they're probably going to choose their coach. It's like asking, okay, I'm going to get you to choose between your partner, who you see 4 hours a day, and me.
Right.
Who are you going to choose? Right?
That's great. Well, we have a lot of people here on the call today who are movement specialists, yoga teachers, some people who focus in on strength. And so I wonder if they have questions about this. And then I want to definitely talk about going online and what that looks like nowadays. So what I heard you say is summarizing is we're not their parent. We're really there to support them. Also, one note that I heard you say was, you know, it's helpful if we know. So can I don't want to assume, but can I think that you're saying basically if someone came to me and said, I really want to build running into my schedule and like this is something that I definitely do not do, then I would try and find someone in my area who focused in on running. But it does get to be really niche down then if they have pelvic health concerns. Do we build that team? Do they have a running coach plus they have their pelvic health team?
Yeah, it's difficult. You know, I like to outsource what I can, but I also understand that it's difficult to do that. I'm a fan of developing the skills, you know, so I can help people with their running, but I won't be able to program them the ability to run a 5K faster. I can give them general principles, I can give them technique, but I might refer that type of goal to a running coach or work with a coach to do that. Um, However, if they're doing a couch to 5K program, I can totally adapt that to their needs and their symptoms, for example. And I know how to analyze running, right? So there's very simple principles. How's their foot strike? Where's their center of gravity over their base of support on impact? What's their cadence like? There's stuff in the research that we know about. So really thinking about just the basics of what I do as a physiotherapist, and I work in sports performance. So I have the skills to be able to help people like that. I have the skills to be able to help people with persistent and chronic pain. And I have the skills to be able to help people with stress incontinence, pelvic organ prolapse, pelvic pain, diastasis. And so being antenatal, postnatal, so being able to help all of these types of people. And it's not about collecting tools in our toolbox because, you know, it's such a common phrase. People love saying, oh, you know, I want more tools in my toolbox. But I hate the underlying assumption that I'm a mechanic.
Right.
I'm not a body mechanic, and I'm not going to use a tool on you. I'm a consultant. You come and see me because of what's inside my brain, the ability to sift through your case and solve problems and make it applicable to you and work with you, asking you the right questions so that you come up with the answers, so that you can plan what you want to do, consult with me about what I think about those plans, and usually they come up with good stuff,
Right.
right? And we know from the change research, from the psychology research, that if they come up with the solutions, they're more likely to stick to it. For example, I can get somebody to program me my eating. Yeah. How's that working out? Right. I know what I got to do to eat right.
Right.
But until I come up with the solution, until I feel like I've got the time and the space and the energy to do it, it's probably not going to happen, and it hasn't, right? And you know, I know this is just a personal thing, but The reason why I got to this size is because literally my pain stops when I eat junk food, and I get increased pain when I don't eat junk food, when I eat clean. So I've got this massive dopamine psychological barrier because of how it makes me feel when I eat correctly. Yeah, and it's not a psychological pain, like it's to do with gout. So it's hard. So I need to have time and space and energy to focus really hard on doing the right things so that I can control the pain and so that I can work out what needs to happen. And so because I understand that, I'm okay with where I am right now. Do I think it's ideal? Absolutely not. And in the same way, people have to be ready to do the change. And so if you just tut them and you just tell them what to do, they're going to say yes, yes. But if you want them to have a sustainable long-term result where you keep them safe and healthy and happy, then learning how to ask questions so that they can come up with those answers. And of course, we're going to try and guide them to the ones that we think are the right answers, right?
Right.
But like if somebody said to me, okay, I'm 3 weeks postpartum, and this has happened, I'm 3 weeks postpartum, I want to run 5Ks, and the race is in a few months, and I want to start training now.
Right.
It's like, okay, so that's the goal. What do you think running a 5K, what do you think the step before being able to run a 5K would look like? And it's like, I don't know, run 4.9K. It's like, you're right. You know, if you can run the 4.9K, it's one step before doing the 5K. But like, what's something that you think you can do, but not be quite ready to run the 5K? Well, I guess 4K would be a good one. Okay, good. So what would the step be before the 4K? And then we keep working backwards. And when I think they're at a level which I think that they're capable of, I just slip in the question, do you think you could take this step? And they're going to say yes or no. Yeah, I don't think I'm ready for that. Okay, well, what's the step before that? Do you think you'd be able to take that step? Yeah, actually, I think I can do that. Great. And you've been writing down all the steps because now they've programmed their progression. And you don't have to write it out for them because you just wrote it down.
Right. I really like how they came up with the answers. You just keep asking the questions. And that really gives the ownership back to that person. Like, I'm doing something.
It's almost like self-efficacy, something like that.
That's so good. Oh my goodness. And you're also making me realize that there are times when I work in a PT office and I focus on yoga for pelvic health. And there are times when I think, oh, here comes this person who never does the things that we agree on. Like they just show up and do yoga in the time and space that we have, and they're not doing their homework. Do you have any tips for that? Because it does feel a bit frustrating. Like, I almost feel like I'm wasting their money or their time if they're not going to put in the steps between.
So let me ask you this, Shannon.
Yeah.
What do you see your role as a yoga teacher?
I really like to step in, help someone set up an at-home practice that will help them with their pelvic health issues, and then step away.
Cool.
But in order to do that, they have to be up for doing the work. And then I like that to end in, 1 to 4 visits.
Right.
Total.
So what I heard you say is that you like them to do your goals. Is that right?
No, I do try and really set up their goal. But I know that I have an issue with my patients sometimes when, like, we set the goal and life happens to people. So I'm wondering, is there something I can do to make it a little easier on myself and them? Like, here's the thing. I don't want them to keep coming back to see me, to rely on me.
Right. And yet, why do they keep coming back? Are you forcing them?
No. No.
Right.
They want me to hold them accountable, I guess, and then they do that yoga in that time and they feel better. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And so what I hear you saying is that they want to come and see you, and they like coming to see you,
Right.
and they like doing the exercise with you, and they're happy to pay you, and they're just not doing it the way that you want to do it. Is that
Yeah,
right?
I have this idea that then they would set an at-home practice up.
Right.
You're right.
Is that what they said? Is that what they said their goal was?
Not always. Yeah, sometimes. This is good. I'm glad you put me on the spot. Anyone else have thoughts on this? I'm glad that you're calling me out on this. So
I'm just asking questions. I'm not calling you out.
they're good questions, though. You're right. It's like I probably
all
go
do it.
in with, yeah.
Right? Where do you think I learnt this stuff? It's because
Right.
I made so many mistakes. I had to sit there and go, hold on a second, what's going on here? And, it really isn't about us, right? It really isn't about us. It's about helping other people achieve their goals. Now, they might have said to you, hey, Shannon, I want to do yoga at home and I want to do this, right? So the first thing that I heard from you was that you want to help them do that. And people can say that. But people say lots of things too. Like I say, I want to lose weight and be fit and healthy. But it took me a while to realize that even though that is something that I want, I just don't have time and space to do that right now because I've chosen to prioritize other things, and I'm okay with that.
Right.
And what I'm sensing in you is that you have this standard, like I do, to be honest. I want to see people 3 to 5 times, have them have a plan that they can take care of themselves.
Right.
All of those things. I'm not a churn and burn guy, right? But sometimes that they'll tell you something and then they'll do something else. And you can talk about that. And it's like, listen, you've said that your goal is this, and yet you're finding it hard to achieve those goals because you haven't done your homework. And I'm not getting mad at you. It's up to you if you want to do your homework or not.
Right.
Right? What is it about being able to do the homework that you're not being able to get to? And it's okay. If you want to say, I would rather sit there and watch TV and then do something, maybe it's my fault. Maybe it's because I've given you homework that's just too hard to do. Maybe I've made the step too big.
Right.
So tell me, what would be out of the homework, which they've said that they like the homework and they're happy to do the homework with you. What is it about that what's something that you can do for 1 minute that you feel like is the most valuable out of all the things that we do? Well, actually, I really enjoy the breathing practice.
Right.
I tell you what, how about you do that during an ad? How about you do that when you wake up 1 minute earlier and you just do a breathing practice?
Right.
Right?
Tiny steps. Oh, this is good. And to
tiny
ask them,
steps, big steps, stacking habits, right? Getting them to break it down to something. And then, you know what? Like, what if we broke down your homework, which I've given you something to do every day? How about we just break that up? What does it feel like one step before completing all of that looks like? And what does one step before that look like?
Right.
And do you think you could take that step? And it's okay if you say yes and then you can't, because you know what? That's data.
Right.
That doesn't define who you are. You're not a good person because you did your homework, and you're a bad person because you didn't. And yet somehow we do that to people.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so let's help them break down the goals into chunks, into smaller steps, because all we can do is take the next logical step.
Alrighty, connected yoga teachers, I want to hear from you. What was your key takeaway? I took so many parts of this talk with Antony into my own life, into my own movement practice, into my own messages that were going on as I move throughout my day. and it definitely impacted now the way I teach. I want to send a huge thank you to Antony for just diving in, jumping in, answering all kinds of questions from our members. So the way we set the calls up in Pelvic Health Professionals, I think is really unique. First of all, we pay our guests. We pay them $200 Canadian for the hour because we really value their time. We know that they are out in the world doing amazing things for all of the people in need in terms of pelvic health. And then the way the calls are usually structured is the first 30 minutes are me asking questions based on this one topic. And throughout that, usually about 15 or 20 minutes in, then our members start to post questions in the chat. And they can either pop on and ask those questions live, or I can ask the question for them. And what was so unique about this call with Antony is that people were sitting back and really into the call, or something different was happening in terms of we didn't have a lot of member questions, which is totally fine. As a side note, I feel like I can come up with endless questions. I know that as a child, this was one thing that I was told quite often, like, oh my gosh, can you back off with the questions? And sometimes it's the same way. It's the way I process information. And the more I hear things, then the more questions arise. And I really love asking those questions. If you would like to hear the full interview, you can go over to pelvichealthprofessionals.com and you can join if it's between June the 1st and the 12th. If it's after that, get your name on the wait list and you'll be the first to know when the doors open. Another note that I want to tell you today before I sign off is that the Yoga for Pelvic Health training that is normally held in person in Ontario, Canada, has now moved online with everything that we're dealing with the pandemic. And so if you want information on that as well, it is in our show notes. I want to also say a massive thank you to our team over here at the Connected Yoga Teacher Podcast, Suzanne, Crunch, Nick, and Sinead. You have been doing so much behind the scenes, and as well, you've been checking in with me. So an update about me, Connected Yoga Teachers, and not an easy update to give, is that a while ago, I was talking about the health concerns that my grandpa is facing. And I've talked about my grandpa quite a bit on the podcast, I realize. My grandpa's almost 90 years old, and we found out this week that he is now in very much end-of-life stage, that we have 2 to 4 weeks with him here. And it has been a really hard time for my entire family. Personally, it's been a really hard time for me because I feel very close to my grandpa. And our team, Suzanne, Crunch, Nick, and Sinead, have really held me through this, saying, what can I do? Take some more time. We'll jump in and do this thing for you. And it means so much. It's also been hard because I love to answer back emails, messages on Facebook, Instagram. I like to really be in conversation with you, dear listener. And sometimes I have been either hesitating, or I just have to be really open and say, I have all of this going on in my life. And I'm telling you this, I'm sharing this kind of as I'm working through it, because I want you to know if I drop off the map here for a little bit, that's what's going on with me. I also want to say that I'm doing okay. Like, I have a lot of support with family and friends, and I've been able to be outside in my garden, and my grandpa is a fellow gardener, and we made a lot of connections out there. So it's giving my heart just a place to really sit in memory, comfort, and also the grieving process. At the same time that all of this is happening, I'm hearing from different yoga teachers all over the world that are dealing with their own stuff that's coming up right now. Studios closing, wondering about reopening, figuring things out online, dealing with overwhelm, parenting. So many things are happening in this world. And I want you to know that I'm holding space for you. And I'm hoping also that this podcast gives you a time to connect and to think about the impact that you are making out in this world, or the impact that you can make in your own inner world through movement or breath or all of the things that you decide to make part of your yoga practice. Maybe you can decide, while I listen to the podcast, I'm going to go outside, sit outside, or walk outside, and we can hang out there together. That's one way that I feel like we can be connected. And maybe for you, it's something different. I would love to know how you are staying connected to yourself, your yoga practice, and to your community so that you can continue to share the yoga that lights you up.